In the second part of the string matching unit, we will start looking at inexact matches, which is the biological more important case where we're finding the occurrence of a pattern in a string, but it doesn't exactly match. And what this means, we already discussed a bit that there's various levels of what kind of errors we can allow. I've just recapped that we had KMP, Aho-Korsic, different algorithms for finding perfectly equal matches. And again, we'll take a step back from Aho-Korsic and now focus on a single pattern first. And you'll see the problem is juicy enough even in this restricted scenario. For the first round, let's look at alignment-based matching. So the most general version of what it could mean to match not exactly. And I will call this the gold standard of inexact string matching or of read alignment. In that, it's the most precise kind of criterion for how good a match is. It misses the fewest sensible matches. So you can think of it as an alignment, as we've done in previous units, of the entire pattern and a substring of the text that we're free to choose. You'll remember what this was called, either a semi-local or a fitting alignment. We had a slide, that's the exact slide from back then. So we already know how to do this. It's a variation of the dynamic programming algorithm we've seen for alignments back then. And essentially, we need this dynamic programming algorithm, the way it's written here. I don't know if it's a bit too small. You need the entire matrix, even for at the end, just picking the best columns. Even if we're at the best cell, even if we're just interested in the score, we would have to keep the entire matrix in memory for this version. So at least if you're using this gold standard way of doing matching, finding matches in a text, you would at least want to slightly improve on this. Also, the running time will essentially remain at n times m. This is hard to beat. We discussed a bit. Okay, we can shave off logarithmic factors, but we discussed in the same context of these exhaustive tabulation techniques. We also discussed this conditional lower bound on general eddy distance problems. So one thing we can do is if okay, I prime is used before it's introduced. Let me introduce it first. The fitting alignment aligns the pattern in its entirety with some subset of some substring of the text. I don't know, just for the avoidance of doubt, let's try it. So I'm ignoring this part up front, but then here maybe I can spread, I can have an insertion, and I can mismatches, and so on. I'm ignoring the prefix and suffix of t for free, but then in between I have to use all of the characters of p, and I have to pay the general score for matches, mismatches, gaps. We don't do affine gaps here. I think that's not the problem. You could generalize to that if you wanted. But let's not do that here. We can slightly rewrite the recursion. And the difference from the original one is here, I'm allowing at every point to start a new alignment. That's why this red is 0 if should this be at, okay, it's the other way around. Okay, annoying. Let's look at this one. I swapped the roles of A and B. Here, I wanted T to be the string that's horizontal, and P is the one that's vertical. T is here, and P is here. In the other chapter, I had the matrices were taller than white. So whenever I'm at the beginning of the pattern, so I'm looking at one of these cells up here, I'm allowed to start it from scratch, and that means ignoring the prefix of t up to this point. Whereas if I'm in this first column, I have to pay for getting this prefix of p out of nowhere. That's explaining these two columns. Now, the previous version, even though it's shifted, would have had the ending of the alignment in any of these cells in the last row. And then the last step would have been pick the best cell in the last row. Instead, let's reformulate the problem slightly so that we keep the best score while we shift right, so that the final answer will always be in this bottom right cell. And what we have to do for this is, for this case, where we only do this in the last row. Otherwise, this is 1, and we add a gap. We're here in the cell ij, and now we're going from the left, right? It's this step going, which is deletion in t. I'm skipping a character, or I'm going over a character in t, but nothing happens in p. A deletion in general costs g for the gap cost, but if I'm already at the end of the pattern, I can do it for free. And with that, I'll have, at some point, some cell here in the lowest row will have the best possible score. And from then on, it'll stay the same as I'm going further right. Then at least I don't need to keep the whole matrix for just computing the best score. And that's the prerequisite for doing the space-efficient alignments we've discussed in Unit 3, I think it was. The rest is the same, so we can still need the same time complexity, but for the space we can improve. First of all, to just compute the score, we only need the last columns, or maybe one column might be enough if you override cleverly, and you can do it with 2 columns for sure. And you could try to use the same divide and conquer algorithm to also construct the alignment from this. Remember, this was the finding the best middle point. I'm not going to go into this detail again. The point is that the time will stay at n times m, and that's already too much. We don't really want to spend that. Okay. You don't even need to do this here, clever. You can augment the dynamic program to store when was the last time you used this 0 rule. If you store the starting point of the alignment, which is the value of I at this point, in a second table, then you can just read out that second component, and that's going to tell you for every score what was the starting point of the alignment, or what was the prefix of t that you ignored for free. That's a nifty little optimization that you can do here. So even without constructing the alignment, you can find all the occurrences that have, you can find the starting index of the best occurrence. I think you only get the one occurrence if you throw away the table. You could collect them all, I guess. You can play further tweaks to this. Maybe it's a fun exercise problem. But really the point here should have been for our application, if we were to do this for every reading through the entire, the product of the genome and the reads, that's way too much. But it seems, unless we're compromising on one end, we're stuck with this running time, unless this lower bound from alignments fails. So it seems hard to improve on this without making some compromise.